In this video, I'm going to try and provide you with a few things that you should think about before installing wood fence posts. And these basically are the results of some of the comments left in the comment area on my YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and get started with the first idea here, or something to think about. Now, if you have sandy soil, I got sandy soil and clay here. If you have sandy soil, the water is going to go through it a little faster. Clay, it's going to kind of hang around and stay in there. So this one here would, the water's going to just kind of drain through. This one here, it's going to be like a sponge. It will absorb the water. So you're probably going to have more problems with clay soil than you will with sandy soil, except, and this is another problem that I've had people say, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and put some gravel in. I'm just going to bury my wood fence post. Well, clay is going to be a little stronger to do something like that. If you just want to put the fence post in gravel, knock yourself out. In sand, there's a very good chance you're going to have to dig really deep, and my guess would be if you're going to be coming up 6 foot, you want to going to want to go down at least 4 foot into the ground with the wood fence, because the sand is going to be looser and the fence during a high wind could actually blow over. Next up on the list, should the concrete encase the entire wood post, or should the bottom of the wood post stick through the concrete? And this one here is debatable. I have seen them rot both ways. But this one here seems to rot a little faster. So this is just my opinion. This is not something I'm going to set in stone. This would be my preferred method. Next up on the list, gravel or concrete footings. And I've heard people suggest that the gravel is going to work better. And I don't really agree with that in all cases. The gravel in clay soil is going to actually create the least resistance for water to that is absorbed into the clay. It's going to head right over to the gravel and sit there. And it's basically, you could end up with a water trap here, depending upon how much water is in the clay. Probably not going to have that situation in the sandy soil. The water is going to be draining through a little faster. So the gravel in the clay soil is going to end up trapping water for a longer period of time, and this water can absorb into the wood and then lead to wood decay or rot. Gravel in the sandy soil, on the other hand, might not create a strong enough foundation and could actually cause the post eventually to move or start leaning. So depending upon the wind in your area. So if you're in an area with high winds, sandy soil and gravel, then I think eventually you're going to end up with a wood post that's leaning or eventually falls down. Now, should you extend the wood post into the ground and then encase it with concrete, or can you just have a small footing like this and then have the fence post go into the ground, get a little more stability? Now, if for something like this in sand where the water is well drained, this might work. In clay, I wouldn't do something like this. The bottom is either going to rot and then rot its way up to the top, or absorb moisture into it and then wick it up to the top. It'll actually just work its way to the top if it's in the ground. So I think eventually this would rot. This wouldn't be good for clay. So in clay, you would need to do something like this. Sandy soil, something like this might be fine. Here's another tip. Try to avoid having water setting on top of the concrete fence post, and that can be easily done by sloping it away or down from the wood, as you can see here, instead of having it flat or to where it actually holds water. This one might not be the best drawing here, but this is actually debris, leaves, dead wood, stuff like that. You need to avoid at all costs having your fence post the concrete below the soil or have debris accumulating on top of it. This right here is probably the number one cause. I shouldn't say that. One of the main reasons to fence post rot. And this is right here is if you have this buried, and it's within an inch or two of the top, and this is getting water regularly, it is going to rot here, and you are going to be replacing your fence post. Here's another comment that I've seen a lot in the comment area on my fence videos, and that of course would be putting gravel underneath the concrete footing. And I'm not entirely sold on this, that it's going to work or provide you with benefits. And the reason why is if you're looking for drainage, then what purpose would it be to have it in soil like sandy soil that is well drained? So you're going to have water draining down in a way. The gravel's not really going to provide you with much benefits. In the clay soil, we're back to the problem where the water could accumulate under the gravel and create problems, for the concrete will absorb water. If you have a pool of water in the gravel and the concrete's on top and it's constantly absorbing the moisture out of the gravel, what's the difference? Get rid of the gravel and just let it absorb the moisture out of the clay. Don't create a pool that this thing can sit in. Here's another biggie. Should you use pressure-treated lumber or other forms of lumber, redwood, cedar, Douglas fir? And I'd like to point out that not all pressure-treated lumber is created equal. I am going to put a link here. I recommend that you watch it to a video I've already made about pressure-treated lumber. If you just go down to your local home improvement center, lumberyard, and purchase pressure-treated lumber, it might not be rated to be buried in the ground. It might not actually provide you with any more benefits than it would to have redwood or cedar, or very little. And the reason why I'm suggesting this, and I'm not saying that you need to build, all fences need to be built with ground-rated pressure-treated lumber. I've seen plenty of fences last for years that with redwood and cedar, if you follow certain steps. Keep the water away from these things. More water you can keep away from them, the longer they're going to last. At least that's what it seems like. So if you live in an area, you're replacing these fence posts, maybe your neighbor's watering the fence every day, maybe this is going to be the answer to your problem. Another problem you could run into would be tree roots from large trees that can actually move the fence posts and lift them up also. I've actually seen them wrap themselves around the concrete footing and trap water, trap moisture, create moisture traps, and sometimes the tree roots themselves transfer water into the concrete footing. And that's not going to be a good thing. Now, the good news is if you have a tree, sometimes you can actually just connect the top of the post to the tree or one of its branches. And that might hold up the fence post until the tree is removed. So this could be a good thing and a bad thing. Plants, on the other hand, can shade the wood post and the fencing. And if you have more moisture or excess moisture in the ground, this is going to prevent it from being absorbed into the air through the heat from the sun. So plants, large plants, it's not uncommon to come to a house where they have a large plant and the plant is holding up the fence. They just simply connect it to the plant somehow, and it might be leaning, but hey, at least they don't have to replace it. So plants and trees can create problems for your wood fence post. So the reason why I put this tip in there was just to think about what you are actually going to put near a wood fence. Here's a tip that I'm not a big fan of any of these methods, but I want to provide you with my reason why. What if you wrap the bottom of the fence post with some type of a material that would prevent water from absorbing through the soil or the concrete into the bottom of the fence post that's buried in the ground? Well, if you seal the bottom of the fence post entirely, you're going to create some type of a waterproofing cup. And it's going to actually trap the moisture, any moisture that gets between the wood and the sealant, whatever you're using, could actually work its way down to the bottom and have no place to escape. Where if you leave the bottom open, the water can escape, but at the same time, now you could have water being absorbed from the soil or the concrete from the bottom and then starting to rot this out. So I'm not a big fan of these ideas, like I said. Now, what about painting the post or using some type of a sealant? Well, that might work, but you could run into problems if you end up with any gaps, cracks, or spots that didn't get painted or sealed where moisture could be absorbed into the wood. So again, these right here, I'm not a big fan of, but I'm also not going to say that they don't work. If you've used them, your father's used them, your grandfather's used them, go for it. We have finally reached the last tip in the video, and that would be whether or not to use some type of structural hardware or hardware you can make yourself. I like this type of design here. I do not like something like this. This is going to provide you with a stronger fence post that you won't be able to move as easily as something like this. I would imagine something like this, you could give it a strong enough shove. 200-pound man could shove this thing and just knock the fence right over. And, and you can just see it's not designed to hold up a fence post. Something like this might be a little bit better. And hopefully these tips help you to prevent something like this from happening in the future. That, of course, would be to be replacing your wood fence posts a lot sooner than they need to be because they were not installed correctly.